Hello Jackson Academy, I'm Pamela Voelkel.
And I'm John Voelkel.
And together we're J&P Voelkel, the authors of the Jaguar Stones trilogy, and we were so sorry not to see you when we came to Mississippi recently, so we thought we'd record a reading just for you. And I was going to take you now into the study of our house to show you where the books are written, but I'm afraid it's such a mess that we can't go there. So we've come out into the garden of our house in Vermont, and it's very hot, like a day in the jungle, but we do live off Main Street, so I apologise in advance for any traffic noise or fire engines, or there's a noisy bird in that tree right there, and there's also 2 crazy cats running around, so if we can get through that, we're on.
The section I'm going to read to you is from the cover of the book, where Max and Lola escape down an underground river.
Oh, we should just explain that on the Yucatan Peninsula, where the books are set, they don't have very much surface water, very few rivers or lakes, and the ground is actually made of limestone. So when it rains, the rain filters through the ground and it ends up in this network of caverns and underground rivers that runs all underneath the Yucatan Peninsula. And the ancient Maya, in fact, used to think that these caves were the entrance to the underworld, which is why the ancient Maya underworld is all wet and cold and drippy and not full of hellfire like our idea of the underworld.
At times, they glided through vast chambers where the water was calm, and their flashlights found blind catfish lurking in the depths, their eyes atrophied from centuries of darkness. At other times, the current was fierce, and they had no time to look at anything as they struggled to keep the raft off the rocks. All the time, Max was trying to keep his mind a blank, trying not to think about the blackness around them, the weird shapes of the rocks, what it would be like to fall into the water, the impossibility of ending this day alive. They entered a place where the cave roof had collapsed, and they had to shade their eyes from the blinding sunlight that poured down on them. The water here was a sparkling green, and it flowed slowly, as if reluctant to re-enter the darkness. All around the chamber, strange forms like giant hairy turnips twisted out of the water and up through the roof of the cave. "What are those?" asked Max. "Tree roots from above," said Lola. "They've burrowed down through the limestone to get to this river." "I can't believe roots could bore through solid rock," marveled Max. Lola turned around to look at him. "Life is hard in the rainforest," she said. "Everything is fighting for survival." "Including you?" She didn't answer, and they paddled on in silence. All too soon, they slipped back into the darkness. The river was quiet now, and the air was stale. It was getting harder to breathe. The cave ceiling came down lower and lower, and they had to lean back to pass underneath. Sometimes they had to lie completely flat on their backs as they pushed themselves along with their fingertips in the pitch black. Once there was a terrible sound of rocks scraping on rubber as they got wedged under a particularly low overhang. Then they had to try not to scream and calmly maneuver themselves to the left or the right to find a place where the raft could squeeze through. By unspoken agreement, Max did the trying not to scream, while Lola did the calm maneuvering. "Are we nearly there?" gasped Max. It was so hot. He thought he might dissolve like a lump of butter in a frying pan. Claustrophobia didn't really cover it. There was no air, no space, no light. This raft was like a floating coffin, except that he knew he wasn't dead, because he could hear the blood roaring in his ears. "I need you to concentrate, Hoop," said Lola. "Do you hear that roaring noise?" "You can hear it too," asked Max in surprise. Lola nodded. "It's the rapids." "Rapids?" "Calm down. It's okay. The river splits in two. Our branch meanders calmly to the outside. The other way gets a bit wild. We must stay close to this wall. If we drift into the middle and get caught in the current, we'll be swept over the rapids, and we don't want that, do we?" Max shook his head. He definitely didn't want that. They inched along, hanging onto rocks and tree roots to keep them close to the wall. The water was placid on their side, and ahead of them was a silent tunnel filled with darkness. Lola groaned. She waved her paddle in the darkness. It made a dull thud. What had looked like a tunnel was a solid wall of black stone. The raft lurched to a stop. The river disappeared under the rock. "Now what? We're trapped. You said you knew the way." Max was panicking. "It's not my fault," said Lola. "The water has risen after the storm." "What are we going to do?" "How do I know? Just don't freak out. You're tipping the raft." She pulled one of the flashlights off the front of the raft and shone the light along the surface of the water where it met the wall of rock. There was no way through. "The rapids it is then," said Lola. "No way!" "Let's just go back and check it out. We can't stay here." Reluctantly, Max helped her turn the raft and maneuver it back to the splitting point. Bits of vegetation flew along in the fast-flowing water rushing to the rapids. The roaring noise was almost deafening now. "I vote we get it over with," said Lola. Before Max could argue, she pulled his hand off the rock, and they were off, slowly at first and then gathering speed, until they became one with the roaring river. The twisting tunnel curved sharply down, and they shot through it, whirling and pitching. The jumping beam of the flashlight made it hard to see what was ahead. Boulders loomed at them out of the darkness. Max screamed all the way. "You'd pay a fortune for this at Disneyland," he'd told himself. They struggled frantically to keep the raft centered in the current. A jagged outcrop loomed on the right. Max used all his strength to push off it with his paddle. The raft hung there for a moment before veering back into the current. Max's paddle, still wedged in the rocks, was ripped from his hand. Caught off balance, he almost fell overboard. He just scrabbled back inside when the raft was thrown into the air as they dropped over a small waterfall. He was pitched over the side of the raft and under the foaming water. The current swirled around him and raged in his ears. Everything was black. He couldn't breathe. He didn't know which way was up. His lungs were gasping for air. Suddenly, something pushed him from underneath, and he shot up through the surface, like a whale rider at SeaWorld. He was in some sort of underground lake. The water was still. The rapids were behind him. The raft was about 10 feet away. He could see Lola outlined in a circle of light, surrounded by a menacing darkness on all sides. He splashed over through the icy cold water, trying not to think about what might lurk in its depths. "Give me a hand," he spluttered, pulling at the side of the raft. "A hand, a hand, a hand." His voice echoed back at him from all directions. "Hold on," called Lola. "The raft's full of water." "Hurry, the catfish are biting my legs." This wasn't true, but in his imagination they were circling him like sharks. He was sure it was only a matter of time before they pounced. "No, they're not. Don't be such a baby. Baby, baby," sang the echoes, as if the cave walls themselves were taunting him. Lola helped him aboard. "Where's your paddle?" she said. "I lost it." "You lost it? I nearly drowned." "But you didn't drown, did you?" "I think the Jaguar Kings are helping us." Max remembered how something had pushed him to the surface. He was shivering uncontrollably out of cold and fear. "Yeah, sure," he said as cynically as he could through chattering teeth. "Just get me out of here." "Get a grip," said Lola sternly. "We're coming to the tricky bit."
So we hope you enjoyed that, and we're looking forward to coming back to Mississippi and talking to you about what happens next maybe. And so that's it from us, and goodbye Jackson Academy, and have a great summer.
Bye!